So this is the question and answer session where we've got two fabulous experts. You get to ask them anything you want. Well, probably shouldn't say that. Anything you want about Internet of Things. And I'll start it off. I heard both of you gentlemen talking about sort of a layer of intelligence, a layer of analysis that sort of goes beyond human beings. So, Jeff, you were talking about you might have a sensor on a shipment, and you know, these sensors are communicating to each other, and one sensor says, you know, the port of Rotterdam is really backed up. And so instead of having a human being looking at that, you're almost talking about, what, agent technology? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, we are exploring the use of software agents down at the device level. As we put that intelligence out there, it's fully anticipated that, you know, we will have things talking back and forth at the edge, and the opportunity becomes how do you manage that? How do you push business rules down to that edge? And I don't know that there's a good answer to that today. There's a lot of research going on in various universities, but that's certainly transformational from a supply chain standpoint. Now, we can do that from a web-based side, but once it gets to things talking to other things, and we remove the human out of it, you know, your supply chains become very, very dynamic.
And James, you were talking, I think, about machine learning around tariff classification. So maybe just to sort of give us some background, you're doing shipments for clients. You have to classify those tariffs in real time. If you start classifying a lot of these things wrong, how are we talking millions of dollars in fines? And yet you're letting machines do this? Can you walk me through that?
So the goal is to be able to provide a quotation that we can stand behind for the transport. So we're classifying for the purposes of providing that quotation.
Right.
To classify using human effort, everything you want to quote in an e-commerce platform is not feasible, given the wide disparity in kind of heterogeneous nature of some of these catalogs that we work in. So we use the machine learning technology to classify for quotation, but we validate all orders with a human classification. So it enables the business and the transaction to happen. It enables us to provide a quote. We're good enough at it. We're very good at it that our quotes are good and we can operate the business. But everything that we ship is validated through human activity. Okay,
so I'm going to summarize this, right? So in real time, you've got to do a trade classification so that I know if I'm shipping from the U.S. A blue belt to the UK, we know what the tariff is on it. And so when the person buys this, they get a quote not only for what the belt costs, but what the tariffs are.
Duties, taxes, customs, brokerage fees, and the transportation.
Right. And so what you're saying is your machine does this classification, and if it classifies it wrong and you find that out later, you guys take the hit. And you're just talk about the machine learning, because it almost sounds like magic to me.
Well, it's an investment we're making over a number of years. It's not it's not magic. It's math. We've been very successful at building out this capability. It's really a core enabler. There's multiple ways to operate. You can take a catalog in and you can classify the catalog through human work. And for finite catalogs, that's a finite cost problem. But really, a partner like eBay has a very, very heterogeneous catalog. I mean, you could go there tomorrow and list something. I could go there tomorrow and list something. And the way we list it could be very different. We could list an iPhone very differently. So our technology is really focused on looking at the text description, the categorization, and saying, how do we use that information to drive a classification? And we've we've done very well in solving the problem.
Okay. Any questions from the audience? Yes. Yeah.
You classify for harmonized goods tariffs. How do you classify for denied parties?
So we have a separate denied party screening process and database that we maintain. Yeah, that's not a classification problem.
And probably for you, it's mostly consumer goods. It's mostly stuff that the government's not too worried about.
Well, the interesting thing here is we're
Yeah.
trying to solve a cross-border parcel problem. So this is not cross-border containers. We're doing this at a parcel level.
Right.
And it's predominantly consumers buying consumer goods.
And where are your trade hubs?
We have a hub in the United States that we operate, central U.S., and we have a hub in the U.K.
Okay. So
We're
it's
outbound from the U.S. and outbound from the U.K. today.
so sort of North America to Europe and Europe to North America is what these support.
It's North America to 64 countries, so far wider than Europe.
Okay.
And it's Europe through Europe and now growing in country count there as well.
Right.
The European UK outbound hub was launched in the fall of 2014.
Okay. And Jeff, I heard you mention anti-counterfeiting, which I have not traditionally thought of as Internet of Things. And the other thing that stymied me a little bit, when I think of anti-counterfeiting, I think of maybe taking a prescription drug and making a copy of it and selling something that has no value. I don't think of bulk chemicals in the anti-counterfeiting arena. So maybe you could walk through those two things a little bit.
Sure. So primarily on Dow's a diversified chemical company, so primarily you're not seeing that, or we're not seeing it on the bulk chemical side.
Right.
It's primarily those goods that reach an end consumer that would be a target for counterfeit product.
So like ag chemical, something
Ag
like
chemical would be
Yeah.
the larger opportunity within Dow.
Right. Okay.
And so building that strategy and those layers of security, like I said, whether it's in-transit visibility, so if your products are tampered with en route, having that visibility, losing that product and having organizations be able to repackage in authentic packages is a critical opportunity.
Okay. Yeah. And it's Internet of Things because there's some sort of sensor, there's some sort of event management going on.
Yeah, there could be auto check-ins, so there's
Yeah.
that two-way communication
Yeah.
from an end user standpoint. There's the whole consumer engagement and loyalty programs that can be layered on top of that as well.
Okay. Yes. Oh, we got another one.
I'd just like to add to a couple of things. I'm Stephen Graham, retired Dow, so
Of Dow.
of Dow, and I
Yes.
was on that
Or
RFID strategy.
Yeah.
There's another business that's really into this anti-counterfeiting, which is our electronic materials.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stuff that goes out with very high value and an enormous amount of IP on it.
Yeah.
So
Now, and I guess I don't understand that. Electronic materials.
we supply a number of chemicals and devices and polishing pads that manufacture that the chip makers use to make chips.
Okay.
And so it's this grinding down to a micron or a nano and the understanding of how that's done. Now, if somebody tries to take that market, we protect the products in the ways that Jeff said with some of those currency-like labeling.
Yeah. Okay. I think I saw a question over here. Yep.
I forgot my question. Jeff, you talk about supply chain, which is stuff Dow sells. Do you also push that policy to stuff Dow buys? In other words, do you ask your suppliers to put an RFID or barcode so that you could track that shipment?
So today that's not being done. I'll say that on the supplier collaboration and supply chain visibility, that's a key check mark that we're engaging on in 2015 and building that strategy around. When it comes to AutoID technologies and standardization of those technologies within the chemical industry, it is still, I'll say, the wild, wild west. It's not like consumer packaged goods in the retail supply chain where there's standards that have been out there for how you name something and how you transmit that data. So that is an area that we want to push, certainly that improving inbound logistics and inbound receiving and that accuracy is an area of improvement.
You know, one of the things we've been talking about this conference is cybersecurity, and we're talking about Internet of Things, and we're talking about this explosion in the number of devices out there connected to the Internet. And you know, some people talk about it as if each device is now going to be a way to get into a company's core systems and do bad things. Is it really that dire? How do you guys think about the cybersecurity issue?
I mean, I can start. So part of our business is our core metering business. We have 1.5 million small and medium business customers. We administer on behalf of the USPS about $16 billion worth of micropayments for postage each year through that network of 1.5 million connected devices. And we've given a lot of thought to the security practices and policies. Those devices have FIPS-approved ASICs within them that we've developed that provide the endpoint security. We talk to them through a managed key infrastructure. And from our perspective, it's always by design that you eliminate threats. I look at every device as, you know, yes, there is a potential threat of that being an entry point into a company's network. You're putting this into a company's site. You have to have designed the device ground up to have that kind of security. So whether it's trusted execution paths, secure boot, the proper key management, key rotation approaches, the right level of hardware security built into the endpoints, I think that layered stack is what secures that endpoint and prevents it from being a threat to both you and your client.
Okay.
And just adding to that, I don't think it's an overblown or overhyped situation. As a global chemical company, security is a top priority. So any device connecting to our network goes through a security evaluation to ensure that it meets the minimum security requirements for touching our network. So I think it would be easy to say that it is overblown. Many of the devices that I showed don't hit Dow's network. However, you know, in the future, they certainly have the ability to. So anytime we open up a firewall or make that connection, there's an opportunity for a breach. So we do need to take that serious.
Any other questions from the audience? Yes, Stephen.
To the last point, it's also a question of risk. As Jeff says, some of the devices don't connect to the network. So things like our rail car stuff go by satellite, go to a service provider, and we can read the stuff on the internet. So we're reading the graphs just like the gentleman from Lafarge earlier was showing remote look at. There are others where we come through external services. The chemical industry is heavily based on Alemica as an electronic message exchange system. So they have their entire security on one level. We're then seeing a message. And if you go for the touchless order, essentially it's all electronic commerce, message to message to message. So when the people start to talk about the security side of things, you have to say, how do I get in? And then where am I? And how do I approach something that's got value behind it? And it's not always the case and Jeff, I think, gave a great tour of some of the many systems that are there. They're not all integrated into one application. And then the buffering of firewalls and internal system layers, which have their own firewalls, is a designed activity that Dow has. So there is risk, but you have to look very hard at, if I get in, where am I? And how can I go somewhere where there's something valuable? Okay?
Beautiful. Thank you. And Jeff, that sort of raised an issue for me. I think at one point in your presentation, you were talking about sort of vendor-managed inventory and sensors sort of kicking off VMI arrangements. Did I hear you sort of go one step further and sort of say these devices could also sort of kick off purchase orders, actual business transactions? Is that the way you guys are thinking about this?
There is an opportunity to take that. Obviously, there's business rules and arrangements that need to be made on that side to actually go all the way through that. But that end-to-end automation of ordering is on the horizon, and it's not a technology problem. The technologies exist to do that. It's a business relationship, and there's certainly opportunities that need to be addressed when approaching that from a single sourcing. When does that happen? There's a trusted relationship that has to be built in order to move to that true touchless order.
So I'm just trying to think this through. On one hand, if I'm a sensor out there and I say I need more inventory, right? And the sensor itself kicks off a purchase order. Why do that instead of having that done in the ERP? I guess.
No.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It triggers a message back through Alemica, as Stephen had mentioned,
right,
which starts that process. So it's not actually created at the sensor level itself.
Okay.
Yeah,
so the POs and all that information is still caught in the ERP.
Yeah, so that's your system of record. That's where those pieces still reside. It's the trigger that happens out at the edge to kick off that process.
Okay, okay, I'm hearing you. Well, gentlemen, any more questions? I guess we go to the bar early today. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.